start with that. Give everybody a couple minutes to know what's going on with that. And we are recording as well. And now I've opened the doors to the webinar. So we will start seeing people coming in and joining us. I always equate it to, and I know Liz and Lisa, you're sick of me saying this, but it's like fling the doors open and let everybody in the webinar.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like I'm visualizing Warwick's doors opening and everybody coming in.
That's a good visual to have because that gives us hope that there will be life after,
Well, there is life after because we were just talking before this started, everybody, we were talking a little bit about what the fall is going to look like, and hopefully Karen will be coming to you actually in person some places. We will be, September is kind of our target date to start doing some live events. We'll keep doing virtual. I think there's still going to be a market for that, but we will be doing some in person. Kind of a strange.
I'm having some.
One of my new talents that I have picked up during COVID. Some people learn to knit or bake bread. I learned how to make virtual backgrounds.
You have a good one.
Yours is very nice.
Very nice. All right, so I will toss it to Liz. Do you want to go with housekeeping, or want me to just? What do you want to do?
Sure. Okay. Hey everybody, thanks for coming. A couple things. Scroll down to the bottom of your screen if you're participating in the Zoom, and there is a Q&A button. That is where we want to hear from you with your questions or comments. I see we already have one comment in the chat. Hello, Susie Baldwin from Seattle. We're excited that
you're here. Third time today, Susie. Hey, you said you were going to be a repeat offender, and I thank you.
That's awesome.
That's dedication, Susie.
Yeah.
Right.
The chat is where Julie will post links. She said you can count on her. Where Julie will post links to Karen's books and to our books or any books that are mentioned during the talk. But we love when you ask questions. We will make sure they get asked. So if you're on Facebook, go ahead and ask it in the comments and Julie will import it over here. And if you're on this talk, go ahead and put it in that Q&A. Oh, we've got Lisa from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for coming. So anyway, put it in the Q&A, and Julie's going to tell you a little bit about our favorite independent bookstore in the whole world, Warwick's.
Love that. Yes, thank you, Liz and Lisa. And we couldn't be doing these. And welcome, Karen, to Virtual Warwick's. Maybe we'll see you in the fall. We'll have to see what's going to happen with that. And Liz and Lisa, thank you for doing the Couch Surfing Book Tour series. It's just been such a blast. We had our anniversary celebration last week, which was so much fun. And so hopefully we'll have another celebration next year and do it then. For those of you who are joining us, I see we got lots of people who are joining us from outside of the San Diego area in the chat here in the webinar. For those of you who don't know, Warwick's is located in La Jolla, San Diego, California. We are celebrating our 125th anniversary this year.
Holy cow.
Can you believe that, Karen?
Oh.
125 years.
Same
Nancy
location?
Warwick.
Same
location? Same location in this building since the 50s.
Okay.
It's the same, continuously family owned. So Nancy Warwick's great grandfather started this.
Oh, that's amazing.
Is that
that's
crazy?
A book. That's a book.
I know. I mean, we had was it on
right now?
Was it on one of these? I think that somebody said, think of all the history that Warwick's has seen. 2 world wars. Right. 2 pandemics, the invention of television. I mean, just like it's amazing what Warwick's has gone through.
Truly.
It's a pretty cool legacy. And one of our legacies is bringing wonderful authors to the San Diego area. So thank you for coming. And like Liz mentioned, your book and Liz and Lisa's book will be in both comment sections. So I'm going to, I just have to do my plug that, and you, Liz and Lisa, you guys order lots of books from us. So any way there is to get a book, you can get it from, if not Warwick's, your local independent bookstore. So please.
Because anybody else doesn't need you to be buying books from them. Okay.
Yeah, they make their money on all that other stuff.
Yeah.
That's that's where they
go ahead, get it from them, but not a book.
Yeah.
Well,
so
and I'll say, because I see we've got Lori from Michigan and Elaine from Chicago. You guys, I just ordered some books from you a couple days ago, and I think they're arriving like tomorrow and I chose media mail, which is a really inexpensive way to ship.
Yeah.
So don't be shy. Warwick's, they do a huge service doing so many of these talks. You also should look at the rest of their calendar. You've got some really like heavy hitters coming up. And make sure
Yeah,
to
like Andrew McCarthy. If
I
anybody's the
saw
80s, if
that.
anybody's the 80s,
Wow.
yeah.
so we're really excited
Good
about that.
one.
Rebellion. You got some good stuff coming.
I'm
Anyway,
gonna
just-
pop out so we can get on to Karen. So
Okay.
Karen, thank you. I'll be in the
I
background.
just
so-
want to do one more shout out for Warwick's that
Yeah.
I sent you book plates.
Yes.
And fun little signed bookmarks that say I met Karen White in my slippers. So,
That's cute.
again, Mother's Day is coming up. Okay. What is the best gift for a mother who reads? A signed book.
Yes.
Because they're rectangles, they're so easy to wrap. Even I can wrap them. So
Exactly.
just keep that in mind and order your next Mother's Day gift from Warwick's.
Yay. Thank you for the plug. All right. You guys have a great conversation. We'll see you in a little
Great.
bit.
Thank you.
All
Jen.
right. So we've got Brianna from Florida and Carrie from Torrance and Michelle from Vermont. Hey, everybody.
I love that. Wow,
yeah.
we are really
Oh,
coasting tonight.
I love this, like these shout outs. I'm Liz Fenton, and I'm here with my best friend of 35 years and also co-author of 7 novels, Lisa Steinke. So our most recent novel was How to Save a Life. It came out last July. It's a dark, heart-pounding love story with a Groundhog Day twist. There are autographed copies of that and our backlist at Warwick's that you can order. And you can find us on Instagram at Lisa and Liz. But today we are here to talk with Karen White, and let me tell you a little bit about her. She's the New York Times bestselling author of 28 books, including the Trad Street series, Dreams of Falling, The Night the Lights Went Out, Flight Patterns, The Sound of Glass, A Long Time Gone, and The Time Between. She's the co-author of All the Ways We Said Goodbye, The Glass Ocean, and The Forgotten Room with New York Times bestselling authors Beatrice Williams and Lauren Willig. She grew up in London, but now lives with her husband near Atlanta, Georgia. Her latest standalone novel, The Last Night in London, was published on April 20th. Welcome.
Thank you, Liz and Lisa. Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm not even wearing slippers. I'm barefoot.
Oh, me too.
Oh, I have slippers on.
Thanks for doing
Wow.
this. It's so good to see. I feel like we're in the same room together. This is awesome.
It does. It does.
Yeah, thanks. We want to thank you for doing it. You already had 2 events today alone. You're
Yeah,
busy.
they're all different. This is the first time, to have a chat like this. This is really fun. And no, I'm not in London. I wish that I were, but that's just the mess behind me. So
Well, Lisa,
Well, I'm loving your necklace
Okay.
also.
thank you, J. Crew.
What, Liz?
I said,
Take
take it away, girl.
Nice. All right, I'm going to take it away.
right.
The Last Night in London has received high praise. Karen White delivers a page turner with heart, grit, and a perfect twist at the end, says Lisa Wingate. And Pam Jenoff says mystery, peril, and romance combined in a heady cocktail that will keep readers bubbling with curiosity until the last page and thirsty for more when they're done. Bravo. Will you tell us what your book is about?
Oh gosh. Okay. This is the elevator pitch, which I'm really bad at. Basically it is, this is a reunion story for me. It's not a sequel or anything, but I have a character, Maddie Warner, who appeared, again, not a sequel. This is a standalone, but I thought it was time to bring a little bit of my personal world into this book. So we have Maddie Warner, who is a secondary character in my books, Falling Home and After the Rain. And ever since that second book came out over 10 years ago, I've had readers begging me, please tell us what happened to Maddie. Last time we see her, she's 18. Now she's a 28-year-old young woman. She is a freelance journalist, and she is hired to interview Precious Dubose, who some of you might remember from All the Ways We Said Goodbye. We meet Precious in that book in 1964. And here it is. It's the occasion of her 100th birthday. And Maddie is assigned to write a story for British Vogue to run concurrently with an exhibit at the London Fashion Museum that is hosting an exhibit of all of Precious's couture clothing, because she was a model in the late 30s and the early 40s. And so on the occasion of her 100th birthday, that is why Maddie has been sent to interview her, and it will run in British Vogue at the same time as this wonderful exhibit. And of course, Maddie's very excited. It's a great assignment, and she gets to stay in this beautiful flat on Regent's Park called Harley House, and to interview Precious. And as luck would have it, I actually lived in Harley House in when my father, who was an executive with Exxon, moved the family to London, and we lived there for 7 years. So my teen years were spent in London, and in this gorgeous flat that was built in 1904. And that is where Maddie goes to interview Precious. And of course, what she thinks is going to be a straightforward assignment becomes much more as both of them begin to peel back the layers of their pasts and really come to terms with regrets, with past grief, and with hope for the future. And it's an unlikely friendship, but it's we throw in some romance. Of course, we throw in the Blitz during London during World War II, and all of that started because the day I moved into our flat, as a young girl, I remember the porter explaining that the reason why so many of the windows were plain glass instead of leaded glass was because during the Blitz, a nearby bomb had shattered those windows and broken them, and they were replaced with plain glass. So I never wanted to be a writer. It was never my plan, but I loved storytelling. I loved thinking of stories in my head and imagining, and I loved to read. And so many nights I would lay in my bed trying to imagine the people that lived in my flat and slept in my bedroom through the building's history, and especially during the Blitz, which, for those of you who don't know, was 9 months of almost nightly bombing. If you can even imagine what that was like. So that is sort of the genesis of the story and what the story is about.
I think you did a nice job with that.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't touch on the espionage or the two romances or but it's there. And the Southern thing, it's all there. Yeah.
It's all there. Well, so has this idea sort of been living in your head for a while then? Because that was my next question is how did you come up with the idea? Was it Maddie Werner, I want to do something with her, or was it you'd always sort of been thinking about this place you lived?
It's definitely something I've been thinking about. And, I feel like there's been such a glut of World War II books, and especially, the time slip. And, I know it looks like I'm jumping on the bandwagon, but this truly has been something I've been thinking of for a long time. I was just trying to find the right story. And it was while we were working on All the Ways We Said Goodbye that we created the character Precious Dubose. And again, so that's 1964. It's 20 years after the war in Paris. And Precious Dubose is everybody's favorite character in that book. And she alludes to a past from World War II, but she doesn't talk about it. But it is clear that there is a story there. And I was starting to work on this book at that time. And I thought, oh my gosh, that could be my historical framework, because I have Maddie for the modern, but what's my historical framework? And we were working on this book, and I asked Beatrice and Lauren, can I borrow a character of Precious and tell what her backstory is? Because it's never discussed. It's just alluded to in All the Ways We Said Goodbye. And they were like, go for it. So that's where that came from. And then all of a sudden the story sort of began solidifying in my head.
Well, so you have, obviously there's a lot of things happening in this book, but what are some of the things you want readers to take away when they finish it?
Mainly, and it's funny because my title for this book, my working title was always, it's from one of the other things that sort of inspired this book was this wonderful poem by William Wordsworth. And there's a line from it, the unremembered acts of kindness and of love. And that, as I was researching this book, and I just realized how many heroes there were in World War II. Heroes we will never hear about, that we will never know about unless you really do a deep dive into the archives. I think, Erica Roebuck's book, The Invisible Woman, about Virginia Hall, who remembers Virginia Hall? But when you know her story, you're like, my gosh, why aren't there statues to this woman? Right. What an incredible human being, and all the lives she saved and the difference she made in the war. There are so many people like her that, their songs will never be sung. And that's what I wanted to bring out. There are heroes everywhere of people doing the right thing and not expecting accolades, not even wanting them, but they exist. And we should pay attention, and we should try to be more like that.
That's why there can never be enough World War II books. I feel that way whenever I finish
so many
one.
untold stories, and we need
There's
to
so many stories, and especially about women in the war, which has been very refreshing.
Because after the war, they kind of just went back home and, married, had babies, whatever. And, then they lived their lives. But my gosh, the things they did. And these are things they were not raised to be. They were raised in the 30s, and, where women were, expected really not to have a higher education or to have a career, but to get married and have children and, and be housewives. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to think that from that came these extraordinarily brave souls, it truly is remarkable.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. We have a question from Facebook. It is from Diane Lee Anderson Winter. Karen, why did it take you a decade to write the book? And I actually didn't.
Because I had deadlines for other books that I was trying to write.
You were writing 5,000 other books.
Just trying to slide in, okay, I have a contract coming up. Yes, this is a book. This is the one I'm going to do. So that's basically it. And just kind of, you have to wait for the right vehicle, for the right characters. One of my favorite books that I wrote that was like years in the making was The Night the Lights Went Out. And it is set in a suburb of Atlanta where I live. And I'd never written about the suburbs of Atlanta. I was waiting for the right story. And I had a 93-year-old woman who is her name is Sugar Prescott, and she's a main character in that book. And she came to me because an elderly woman named Dusty in my book club, when I asked her, if she ever got married again, what would she look for in a man? And she said, if I should ever marry again, I want a man who can drive at night. And I remembered that line for years, and I was waiting for the right book and the right character to put that line in. So I was kind of waiting for the convergence of the right things. And that was The Night the Lights Went Out, with Sugar Prescott, who delivers that line. And, you just kind of have to wait for the right moment. I've got all these, I'm sure Liz and Lisa, you're the same way. You have all these things going on in your head, and it's just a matter of putting them together where they belong, putting those puzzle pieces and saying, yes, now I'm ready to write this book.
Right. Well, so on that note, as we've mentioned, you've written a lot of books, almost 2 million in print, which is just amazing. So your writing process, I'm just curious what it is now, and has it changed over time, or is it pretty similar to when you began?
No, it's way different. Before I was, when my kids were home and they were in school, and before social media really took over, it was very easy to structure my days. I would drive my kids to school, drop them off. I would go home and I would work. There was no Instagram. There was no Twitter. There was, very, very little Facebook. I could schedule Facebook for the evenings after dinner, It wasn't this constant need to be seen. And I struggle with it. I love social media, but it does interfere with my writing time. And now with my parents, that is so unpredictable. I never know when I'm going to be called, to take care of something, or there's a problem, or, whatever. And so my life is very disjointed now. And I do find it's very hard for me to find a large chunk of time like I used to when the kids were smaller, to really immerse myself. And I miss that terribly. My brain misses it. I feel like I'm becoming very ADHD because I'm constantly, oh, I got to do that. No, I got to do this. Now I got to do that. it's a lot. And I was talking to my husband tonight, like, I've got to find a way to corral it. I'm doing the best I can, but I'm
Right.
still very frantic every day, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I can't,
Well,
I
this,
fall asleep like a dead person at night, and I wake up like,
Right.
there's the alarm, let's go, you know?
I know. Well, this is 466 pages.
I know, right?
So
Child.
you found some time
I know, but
somewhere
you know,
in there. So I'm curious, how long did it take then?
well, so that's the
To write
funny
this.
story. So, you know, the book was supposed to come out. Okay, it could be a good doorstop, you know, and it's pretty, so it'll make a pretty
It's really
doorstop.
pretty. Very pretty.
But so I started this book was due August 1st of 2019. So I started writing it like at the end of 2018. And at the time, my husband and I had plans to go to London so I could do a little research trip. Yes, I lived in London for 7 years, but that was a long time ago and things change. And I visited, but I've always visited as, you know, without the writer's eye, you know, trying to look for
Mhm.
things that I needed to
Mhm.
write about. Damn it. You know, I wish, you know, hindsight and all that. So we planned to go to London in 2019. Well, in December 2018, when I was starting the book, that's when I realized my parents were not in a good situation and I needed to move them from Tennessee to be near me here in Atlanta. And then I realized that not only did my mother have Alzheimer's, but my father was definitely, you know, in the beginning stages. And so, you know, everything was in disarray. I had to like drop everything, their healthcare, their, you know, new doctors, all that. I had to do everything. And my life was really turned upside down. And, you know, I would send pictures to my editor of me and I was back and forth in the ER. I felt like Norm from Cheers, you know, every time I went to the ER, Karen, which parent is it this time? You know, and I take pictures of me with my laptop with one of my parents on a stretcher, like in the ER on the other side, sending them to my editor saying,
Yeah.
look, we were also building a house at this time. So it was like, it was crazy. And so the book was 8 months late. And that's when, thankfully, you know, my editor said, let's put this in 2021. And my husband and I were like, great, we can, you know, great, we can go to London in 2020. And, you know, so the thing is, because I did have more time with this book, I was able to do more. Normally, I don't
Right.
have to do a lot of rewrites, but this time I did a lot of rewrites, which I think made it a much stronger book, and I'm
Right.
very proud of it. So, you know, I can't tell you how long it took, just that it
Right,
took a
because it
long
was just
time. But it was just
right.
like this disjointed, horrible time of my life. And, you know, and I
Right.
looked at this book as really a sanctuary, because it was what
Right.
I knew what I was doing. Whereas with parent, you know, when you take over your parents' care, and I learned everything I need to know about Medicare. If you have questions, it's like becoming a CEO of a company you didn't want to even work for, you know, much less be
Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah. Definitely. But you don't always write alone. You also write with two other authors who we mentioned earlier, Beatrice and Lauren.
Yes.
What's that like? And what's that process like? I mean, people always ask us, how do two people write a book? So
Right.
how do three people write a book? And also, how did you guys get started on that? Like, how did you come together?
In a bar.
Yep. That's always the best way.
Three writers walked into a bar. It was actually at a writers conference, and we were having such a good time together. And we had all been reading each other's books. We were all fans of each other, so it's like we felt like we knew each other. There may have been some stalking going on my part with Lauren, because she was popular with her Pink Carnation series, which I adore. I love all of her books, but I just have a very warm place in my heart for the Pink Carnation series. And so we're in the bar and we're drinking. We're like, you know what? We're having so much fun. We need to do this more often. And then we're like, we need to find a way for a publisher to pay our bar bill. And we're like, oh my gosh, all we need to do is write a book, and then they send us on book tour, and then they have to pay for the bar bill. So that is really the genesis of it.
Right.
And but you know, when we sat down for the first time, like, we had no idea what we were doing. We had no expectations. We just show up cold. I flew up from Atlanta to New York. Beatrice took the train down from Connecticut, and then Lauren walked the two blocks to Alice's Teacup in New York City. And we started plotting that first book, The Forgotten Room, and it was like magical. And we agree, we don't know, and we have lots of author friends, and I'm sure y'all have lots of author friends, but you
Right.
can't imagine. I mean, y'all know each other for 35 years, so obviously you know how you tick and all of that. And
Right.
Lauren and I had not known each other for very long, it was the most magical little zing zing thing that went amongst us while we were started to plot the first book. First of all, we knew that we were checking our egos at the door. And the second thing, this was our book. This wasn't her book, or her book. This was our book. So we all owned it. We owned all the characters. We owned the story. And, the first person would say something, and the next person, instead of saying, oh, that's not going to work, would add on to it. So it was this
Right.
wonderful just experience. It was truly magical. We try not to examine it too closely,
Right.
because it really is this magical thing. We call ourselves Team W, and we have the Unibrain working for us, which is, one brain.
Unibrain. Oh,
The
we
Unibrain.
maybe have the same brain, but we could call it a unibrain, Lisa.
Yeah. Can we borrow that? Can we
Yeah.
borrow that?
I don't know. You'd have to. We're thinking about trademarking it.
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh,
put
well,
TM after it. We'll have to put TM after
Even
it.
our text chains now have a time. Beatrice's young daughter, now whenever it's the Unibrain, whenever we text, it's always Lauren, Beatrice, and Karen. It's the
oh
Unibrain.
my God.
So cute.
I know.
That's really cute. And just one more question about it. Like, how do you do it? Like, does somebody write one chapter, somebody else writes another chapter? Do you divide it by character? Then we can
So
move
when we
back to
get
your book. But I'm
together,
just,
we outline, which is really laughable
Right.
because the three of us are incapable of outlining our single books. Like the last night in London, I had a vague idea of where it was going. I didn't know that there would be secondary characters, and the major plot twist didn't even come to me until I was 3/4 of the way through the book. And that's how Beatrice and Lauren work as well. It's not recommended. It's just the
Right.
way that it works
Right.
for us. But obviously when you're writing with one author or two other authors, you need to outline the book. So we always get together at first to outline the book, and nobody picks a character or whatever. We create it together. And then towards the end, we're like, we'd gravitate towards one character or another. And it's always this simple process of claiming a character, and each character is, it's not always necessarily in their own time zone. I mean, in the Glass Ocean, we had two of the characters on board, so it was the same time period, but different characters. And it's just, and we normally try to pick characters that are against type to kind of like stretch our writing muscles. So readers can't guess who does what. It's a sworn secret. If you find out, we'll have to kill you. It'll be, we're gonna put it in some cement block that will be opened, 100 years after the last one of us is gone. But even our editor can't tell who writes what. But and I think it's because we own the stories,
Right.
That's a huge compliment. That's what we're always looking for.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what if you're going to have multi-authors, you really have to be able to
blend your voices.
Yeah. Be a chameleon. We call it like.
Well, so I was sorry to cut. I was going to ask you. So you answered my question about plotting versus just fly by the seat of your pants. What about character development? Is it the same thing? When you were writing Last Night in London, did you just sort of figure out the characters as you were going? I know you knew the one, but beyond that, how does that work for you?
Precious and Maddie, and every book I start.
Or the two, right?
Yeah, I know the setting, because setting in my books is as much a character as the actual people are. In London, because it was my hometown for so long, and I know it so well and love it. So I always start with, the main characters and their internal and external conflicts. So I knew that about Precious and Maddie, and then I start writing. And, the secondary characters, like Sophia, I didn't know she would be in there. I didn't know Mr. Danik, who was supposed to just be a, makeup artist employed by, the fashion house. I didn't know he would be a major plot point either. I love that because I always approach writing as a reader. You know, when I read books, I don't want to know how they end. So when I write books, I don't want to know how they end.
I
And
love
even
that.
when we do the collaborations and we do have, you know, an outline, we outline them loosely enough so that we are all, you know, we can change it, and we often do, and it's never an argument. Like, we have no conflict, you know, when one of us says,
Right.
oh no, I was writing this part and I realized that this will work better than what we talked about, and we're like, okay, great, we'll just adjust, you know. And then we write round
Right.
robin, you know, one person writes their chapter and then we send the manuscript to the next person, they read what's come before and they write their chapter, and then we go.
Okay. Right. That's how we do it too.
Okay. Do y'all live close to each other?
We do now, but we didn't for 10 years of our writing partnership.
Wow. But thank goodness
Right.
for computers, right?
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah, we were very old school, just Word document, email it to back and forth.
And that's
The
what
only-
we still do. We still do. We don't do
Yeah.
like Google Docs or anything. We just like, here's the manuscript.
Yeah. Yeah, it just feels easier. We only moved to Google Docs like in the very end when we're
Okay.
quickly trying to finish. But yeah,
Okay.
like
That's
it old
very
school.
impressive. Yeah.
I don't like in Google Docs
s-
when I can see Lisa's cursor, like I'm writing something and it's really creepy, and like her cursor
Yeah.
goes up with her face.
and it shifts if you're in there at the same time. Like it can shift what's
I will
it's-
text her and I'm like, get out of here.
Out of here.
Like, watch what I'm writing. I hate that.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
I agree. And I know it's old fashioned the way we do it, but it's the way that we've been doing it. So
Right.
call us Luddites. That's just probably the way we will die doing it. Yeah,
I think simple works.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, I was prepping for the interview, I went on Goodreads. I mean, you have really good reviews for this book, and I'm excited to read it. It's right up my alley. So I'm really excited for it. But I'm curious, what have you read lately? If you've had any time, have you read anything lately that you'd recommend, or do you have any authors you know have a book coming out that you would recommend?
Yes, I mean, the good thing about this COVID thing is that I have been
Mhm.
sent so many books to read, to discuss, you know, in conversation with, you know, with so many different authors.
Right.
And one of them I already mentioned, The Invisible Woman by Erica Roebuck. I was
Mhm.
so lucky to be able to read that in advance. It's just so good. I cannot believe this woman was real. I mean, she's Superwoman, but real, you know, and without,
Right.
you know, and she was missing a leg. She had a prosthesis while, you know, parachuting into, you know, behind the lines. And I mean,
That's
dear
crazy.
God, is this woman for real? And she was. I mean, it's just, anyway. So I highly recommend that. And also, and I'm not just saying this because she's a dear friend of mine and a co-writer, but Lauren Willig's book, Band of Sisters. Oh my gosh, I've loved all of her books. Like I said, huge fan of the Pink Carnation series. And I've read all of her standalones and I've loved them all, but this one stood out. And I think it was especially wonderful because I remember when she was researching, we were researching for All the Ways We Say Goodbye, and she found this little nugget of information that sort of sparked the idea for Band of Sisters. So I kind of took a little bit of ownership.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, and today I had a conversation with Renee Rosen, who wrote The Social
Right.
Graces, which again was
Mhm.
sort of so eye-opening about, you know, Caroline Astor and the Gilded Age and Alva Vanderbilt and their, you know, rivalry, just amazing. So yeah, I mean, so many good books out right now,
So
and I'm sure I'm
many.
missing a bunch, and I'm sorry, but
Well, but those are good examples. And Renee taps into really interesting different topics when she writes her books. I really like her
agree.
books. I'm
Like, I
looking
love
forward
Park
to that
Avenue
one.
Summer about
Right.
Shirley Brown. Yeah, just wow. I mean, I was fascinated by that. These are people like you know, you've heard of in passing, but you don't know
Right.
their inner workings, and it's fascinating.
Well, I think we're gonna move toward the end. We've been such a good discussion, but we want to know what's coming up next for you. If you have anything you can share there before
I
we
know nobody
wrap.
believes me when I say I'm a slow writer, because I actually have another book coming out this year. I think it's
You
just
know,
I write
it's-
all the time. Like, I haven't had a vacation in almost 4 years. Maybe that's why.
I think you need a vacation.
I
I'm gonna root for that.
Yeah. So I
Good
do.
for
I
that
have
for
a
you.
book coming out November 2nd. It's called what is The Attic on Queen Street.
You have so many
I love
books.
that you had to think about it because you have
Stop it.
so many books going out and writing so many books.
Well, I'm
The
working on the
Attic on
copy
Queen
edit
Street?
now. It should be fresh in my head, but it is the
Well, you have a
seventh
lot going on.
final book in the Trad Street series. But have no
Okay.
fear, there will be a spin-off series. The first book, which I've already been sent the sketch for the cover, comes out next fall, and it will be set in New Orleans. The new series. It will
Ooh,
be
fun.
Trenum from the Trad Street series. And the first book is called The Shop on Royal Street. And like The Last Night in London, it's set in New Orleans, which is a place I lived for 4 years because I went to Tulane. So
Okay.
my first get out of jail card is June. My husband and I we're fully vaccinated. We are taking a trip to New Orleans to research because I believe in suffering for my craft, which means I will
Of
have to go to
course.
all the restaurants I'm going to write about, all the bars, do all the
Yep.
tours,
To make sure you can describe how the alcohol tastes and how the food tastes.
Exactly.
It's
I wanna
very
be
important.
authentic, and
Yeah.
I will do. I
Yeah.
do it for my readers, so you are welcome.
Yes.
I have a question real quick though before we wrap up completely. So for this book, Karen, was there anything in the research that you did that like surprised you? That was something that was like, oh, I didn't like think about that or didn't know that that was happening.
Absolutely. Like I had no idea what a predicament Winston Churchill and the rest of Great Britain was under. All of Europe had fallen. We know what happened at Dunkirk. Everybody, they got them. That was it. All the exiled governments from Europe were now in London. And they were separated by the Nazis by the English Channel, which is so small. And Winston Churchill is like, reaching out to the United States, and the president is saying, help, help. And the president is saying, no, we don't want to get involved. And then they go through 9 months of bombing, and Hitler is like, oh, after a week of this, they're going to give up. They did not. They would get up every morning, pull out the wounded, bury the dead, sweep away the glass, do bomb sales, and carry on. And just the strength of character of the leadership and the average citizen blew me away, and I have to laugh because I do parallels to the pandemic. Like I can't wear a mask for 20 minutes when I go to the grocery store. Right. It's like,
Yeah.
Y'all need to read a little bit of history. I mean, what these people lived through. It is mind-boggling. And I just had no idea. And I'm so glad that I did the research. And now I know, and I just have and now I really want to go back to London and see it now with fresh eyes. I mean, even in Regent's Park, like near the path where I used to run every morning, they recently dug up skeletons who they think are unidentified victims.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I mean, it's so close to
That's
home.
crazy.
Yeah.
And identified, so many people, 139,000 wounded, almost 50,000 killed in 9 months. And they would not give up. But yeah, my hat's off to them, and definitely something else should read about. I think it's an interesting, and I think there are parallels to today, and there's lessons to be learned.
Well, and that your comment earlier about, which is, I don't think there can be enough World War II novels. I mean, I just think that
I totally agree.
That is a perennial topic because there are so many individual stories of heroes and people that I think that it is a topic that I think
we need to bring them to light because
absolutely.
Yep.
So anyways, thank you for answering, because I always love that question too. And it's just like, oh, what was surprising?
Good question.
That's a good question.
Karen, it's been so much fun.
Thank you all. And really, I wish we were all in person, but this is truly the next best thing. And I love that we had people from Vermont, we had people from Michigan, we had people from California. And I'm in Atlanta, not London. I wish I were in London. This is such a pleasure, and I appreciate.
And I want to give a little plug, because your Team W is so if you want more of Karen, come back to us on Saturday, because we're doing Moms, Manuscripts, and Mimosas with Team W. So we're doing that on Saturday.
Cool.
And I have to show you. Oh, you probably can't see
That
it.
sounds fun.
Oh, you can't.
Oh no.
Put it in your face. Put it in front of your face. Let's see. No, still can't see it.
No.
Oh, there we
yeah,
go.
there.
There we go. Yep.
Sort of.
And you know
There we
what's
go.
on the back? Very on brand for Team W.
Nice.
No, can't
It's
see
a
it.
cocktail
Come
recipe
back,
that
come
goes
back.
with the books.
Oh,
So,
that's
there will be giveaways. We've got these really cool signed totes, and it'll be fabulous. Lots of trivia.
oh, how fun.
And thank you for reminding me it's Saturday because we need to come up with our not tomorrow, but next Saturday
Correct.
to come up with trivia questions.
Yes. So
It'll be
Saturday
fun.
the 8th. So go to Warwick's website. Liz, you gave us a little bit of a plug on that earlier too. Go to Warwick's
That'll be
website.
fun.
You can see all the events that we have happening, but Karen will be back with us on May 8th. I think I want to say it's like 1:00 in the afternoon Pacific Coast time.
You know what? I
Somewhere about that.
just so
But you can
disoriented.
check our website to see.
Yeah, and my website as well, my events page. So
Yeah. So we see
Awesome.
Karen dash White to see
Dot
where that's your social media. That's it. They can find everything
Yes.
out about you
go
there.
there. You'll see all of my links to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So.
And Liz and Lisa, what about you guys? Where should people go?
You can find us at Instagram, Lisa and Liz, at Facebook, Liz Fenton and Lisa Steinke, and you can find all our links, including our YouTube, where we have a book club on our local Fox News every month, and those are there at lizandlisa.com.
And you do have a really fun podcast too. What's your podcast?
Oh yeah, thanks, Julie. Kind of
Yeah.
off my game today.
I know,
We have a
you're right.
podcast. We have links to our podcast too. It's called We Fight, so you don't have to. And we talk about all kinds of things and all the things that we fight about.
Love it.
Yeah.
And Susie Baldwin, who's been following you around today,
Thank you,
she's-
Susie. It was
she's
great.
coming to
I feel like
team-
we spent the day together.
she's coming to Team W too. So
Yay!
Susie, 4 for 4. I love it.
I love it. All right, everybody, I'm going to close the webinar and take us off of Facebook Live. So we actually go away, Karen, when I close this. We don't go back into a green room situation. So it was wonderful having you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Liz and Lisa. This has
Karen,
been a real pleasure.
thank you so much.
Congratulations on the book and good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night, y'all.
Bye.